Right. Hello, Claire O'Leary. How are you today?
I am doing great. And how are you, Anu?
Oh, I'm doing really well. So you're back from Texas?
I am back from Texas. Had a lovely visit with my sisters,
Nice.
ate amazing food for 5 days. And
Oh, lovely.
now I feel like I need to lose a few pounds.
So in Texas, is it Mexican food?
Actually, no. We ate no Mexican food there at all, which is unusual, honestly. We ate a lot of Italian food. We ate
Oh, nice.
Spanish food. I had fabulous spaghetti carbonara,
Oh,
and
lovely.
we had tapas one night that were out of this world.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
So,
So I know I've heard about Texas because I had a guest on just earlier this week who was actually in Texas. So, hmm,
ah,
popular place, I think.
it is. Yes, I was in Austin,
Nice.
and it's first time I'd actually been there. Just really beautiful,
Oh,
and
lovely.
weather was fabulous. Everything cooperated, so no
Beautiful.
complaints.
Win-win. Oh, amazing. And I
Yeah.
really thank you for your time today as well for coming on the Victim to Victor podcast, because as you know, it's aimed at sexual abuse survivors and also survivors of domestic abuse and violence. And I know you've got a very tragic but inspiring story to share with us, and that's why I've invited you on. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
You are so welcome. I am really excited. Thank you so much, Anu, for inviting me. This is such an amazing venue, and I truly appreciate all of the wonderful podcasts that you've had, and I know that you're going to continue to have.
Thank you.
It's I love watching them.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Your support means the world. And
Right? Yeah,
yeah.
they're I learn something every time.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think I mentioned it in my introduction already, but Claire also has her own show, which is Empowered. Is it Empowered Voices?
Empowered Voice is actually the name of my company.
Okay.
And so on Wednesdays at noon Mountain Time, I do it's a Facebook Live, but people are beginning to call it a podcast. So
Yeah, I did, didn't I?
maybe it's a podcast. Um, and it's all about building resilience after sexual trauma.
Okay.
And so I have people on there who most of them are trauma survivors, but not all. Um, and if they're not, they're typically professionals who have great advice for those of us who are.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I will be adding a link to your show in the description of this podcast or YouTube video. So if anybody's interested, then you can find Claire there. But let's get into why you're here, Claire, because as I mentioned, you have a story to tell us. And to be honest, it's going to be my first time listening to your story, but I know it's one that you've been through from a very young age.
Right, right. I was first abused. I was only 5 years old
Okay.
by my uncle, and honestly, I just ignored it. I
Okay.
just ignored the whole thing. And it wasn't until I'd been through 10 years of therapy,
Yeah.
and she kept wanting me to talk about what had happened when I was 5. And I kept saying, it's no big deal. It was 15 minutes and it was just not important. I mean, I had all this other stuff that I was there for because I was also abused at 16 by my father for several years. That to me was, of course, much more critical. But years after, I realized that this tragedy that happened to me at 5 that I had completely ignored and just not paid much attention to was the reason that here I was at 58, still a yes girl. And I couldn't voice my own opinions. I couldn't ask for what I wanted. Heck, I didn't even know what I wanted. I had been a yes girl for so many years. I had no clue who I was. So that's kind of what started me on my journey, really exploring what happened to me at 5. And I realized one day I had been doing some journaling, and I suddenly saw a flash of this little girl in front of my eyes. And now I had seen her before, but not for well over a year. So this little girl is standing in the doorway. Tears are streaming down her face. And I'm like, okay, I have seen her before. I have ignored her, but I've done enough personal work that I know it's time that I really need to look at this. So I gathered my journal and my pen, and I practiced some deep breathing so that I was really relaxed and in a good space. And I started writing. And I realized that that little girl was me at 5 years old. I was walking out of the bedroom. I could see, as I was writing, I could feel everything. I finally, for the first time, allowed myself to feel everything, see everything, remember. For the first time, I remembered who it was. I had totally blanked it out because honestly, he was my favorite uncle. And that just was not something I wanted to remember about him. So I just, as I'm writing, I see the small trailer that we live in, the bedroom where everything happened. My 18-month-old sister was laying on the bed. And I'm standing there in the doorway, and I am literally, this is after the trauma happened. And my uncle is standing by the kitchen sink as though nothing had happened. And I am walking out of the bedroom where I had been told just before my parents left, and they weren't gone 15 minutes. Okay. But they said to me, don't go in the bedroom. You'll wake up your sister. Well, I'm in trouble, and he just stands there. I'm standing in the doorway. I am scared to come out because I know that I'm in trouble. I can feel that I have done something wrong. Now, in that moment, it didn't feel necessarily like it was that he had done something wrong or that I had done something wrong, except that I had disobeyed my parents. And I tried to explain to my parents that he took me in the bedroom, and I got totally shut down. Don't talk back. And I just became completely voiceless. And I remember that in that moment, I wondered whether or not they would still love me. And I made a decision as that little 5-year-old that in order to be loved, I had to be anyone, anyone that anybody wanted me to be, and I had to do anything anyone wanted me to do. And I lived my life that way for well over 50 years until I wrote down this. This was such a deep healing for me to be able to remember everything that had happened. I realized that I became the good little girl at home, at school, at work as I got older. The fear of being unloved was my greatest fear, being unloved and being unaccepted. But once I wrote this, and I realized that I had made that decision at 5, it completely changed my life. I knew that I no longer had to live from the perspective of a 5-year-old. I was 58, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
And, still I would wonder, will they still love me? Just the whole time. And so anyway, once I had written this down, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a weight I didn't even know had been there. And I decided in that moment that I needed to work with others, with other women, so that I could help them through art journaling, and other things like Reiki. I could help them to move through their trauma. Okay. And that's when I truly started realizing what my purpose in life was. It was, it took years, honestly, to really get to the point where I am today, to be able to say no when I wanted to be able to say yes to the things that made me happy. But it has been such an amazing journey to be able to do that, and being able to work with women who've been through the same thing as I. It's uplifting. And the women I work with are so courageous. I absolutely love working with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a story. And I just want to know, looking back throughout your adulthood, what was it that changed, and how did you change? Was there something that just clicked inside of you where you realized that?
Yeah, something really clicked inside of me when I realized that, I don't know who I am. And I really began exploring a lot of alternative ways of healing, a lot of ways to better communicate with my husband, which has made my relationship with him so much better and last so much longer. I mean, I was on the verge of asking for divorce.
Okay.
And it was my unhappiness that was causing so much. I was angry all the time. I would explode over the toilet paper being put on in the wrong direction, for heaven's sake. I was honestly surprised that both my husband and my daughter didn't divorce me.
To be honest, that just
to be
that,
perfectly honest.
no.
And
No, I'm just laughing because that annoys me as well.
does it? Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay. But I finally began to learn what I wanted out of life and what I wanted in general.
Okay.
And gradually learned how to ask for it a little by little. And it took some time. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over a number of years. I got better and better and started working with more sexual abuse clients in my Reiki practice and a lot of other ways down the road. So it just was a journey of self-discovery.
Okay, that's perfectly put, actually. And because you mentioned about just your belief system changing as well. Could you expand on that?
Well, I really began to realize that I was worthy.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
That was so huge because I always put myself last, no matter what. I put my business last, I put myself personally last, anything that was important to my husband, to my daughter, until I realized that I too was important. And that took some time.
Yeah.
The voices in my head, getting rid of those voices in my head that you're not enough and you can't do this, gradually started changing to the point where I could look in the mirror and I could say, wow, you're doing some amazing things. You are really a good person. Just starting to feel so much better about who I was and that I could do whatever I set my mind to, I realized. Now, I'd always been stubborn. And so I always made, if there was something I really wanted, I went for it and I always made it happen. But it wasn't, I didn't believe that I could necessarily do it. I just kept on trucking.
Yeah. So I don't know, something which comes to me is about the fact that, were you able to forgive your uncle and your father?
Absolutely. That was that was really interesting. I'm trying to remember when that happened, but I did a lot of inner processing and a lot of journaling. I remember at one point I had read in a book that forgiveness wasn't about the other person, that it didn't mean what they did was okay, that forgiveness was for me. So that really made such a huge impact on me. And I started doing a forgiveness process where I would go to bed at night and I would let the energy move through my whole body. And I would say, I forgive you. I forgive myself. And I did that. Well, for the first couple of months, I would do it for hours. The first few times I did it for hours. And then I started doing it a little bit less. And I noticed that I could literally feel and see, because I'm a little bit of a clairvoyant, I could see the energy changing from dark to light each time I did this practice.
Okay.
It was the most phenomenal thing I have ever done. And I could, my heart just lightened as I would forgive my father, I would forgive my uncle. It was a really great practice, and I've learned to do it with anybody that I'm angry at. And it has made such a huge difference in my life to be able to do that, to not harbor anger and
just any negative emotions, right?
all that
Anger.
negative emotion forever. Yeah.
Sadness.
I mean, those emotions were from my childhood, were just so stuck in my body that it took months of doing this forgiveness work.
Okay. Oh,
The,
wow.
the other thing I did was Colin Tipping, I believe, or calling, I believe it was Colin Tipping, wrote a great book called Radical Forgiveness.
Okay.
And I also, at the same time, worked through a lot of the exercises in that book.
Yeah.
And that was, it changed my mindset.
Okay.
And I can honestly say today that I am glad that I had gone through all the healing work I had to do because of what happened, because otherwise I would not be doing the work I'm doing today. I would not be working with such courageous women and women like you, Anu, who are just, I am inspired by every single day that I meet somebody new. And every time I share my story or just say that I was sexually abused, I hear me too. It is so common. And it's really made me realize how far reaching that it is, and how many of us have had to go through this. But without having gone through it, I would not be able to relate the way that I can. I would not be able to be as compassionate or as good a listener. I would not be able to create that safe space that I create for others. And so I'm grateful.
I know. Wow, I can sense it in your voice, the passion and just the joy in where you are today. And it's just crazy where something so bad that's happened to you can become something so beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And you know, certainly while it was happening, I did not think so.
No.
Not for quite a few years.
Oh goodness, I know, God forbid.
Right.
And yeah, honestly. And I do. And you know, I just think about my listeners, because my listeners are from diverse range of you know, population and just, you know, where they are in their life now. What would you what would your advice be to those who are currently suffering in silence with their abuse?
I would say share your story with somebody. Start with somebody that's close to you that you feel safe and comfortable with.
Mm.
And you don't necessarily have to share the details, but let them know that that happened to you, and it will open up different things. Now, I know from talking to so many women that sometimes the reactions are
Yeah.
not the reactions that they'd hoped.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if you choose the right person or someone such as myself or a new, that you know you will be believed and you know you will be well received. And because that is so important,
Yeah.
you know, keeping that story inside me for so many years, just keeping everything bottled up. I
Mm.
was, well, you know, I was angry all the time.
Yeah.
I can't even tell
Just,
you.
yeah, it does. It
I
comes
was
out
just
in
not who I
waves.
am today.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it
Yeah.
is, and from someone who also struggled to find people whom I could trust and open up to, I understand that it's not an easy task even finding somebody who you can trust, which is why I guess we have we've got our support groups that we're currently running. So I just want to say to anybody who is struggling to find somebody, then please do get in touch with myself or Claire, or as
Mhm.
both of us, because we are here to support you all.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's really important to share with someone that you know will respect you and will help if you need it, but will not jump in and say, this is what you have to do, because the journey is different for every one of
Yeah,
us.
it is.
And while therapy worked really well for me, I found immediately the right therapist. She was a transpersonal psychologist,
Okay.
and I learned a lot of energy work from her, a lot of ways um, to understand myself and to let go of a lot of things. And
Yeah.
without that help, I wouldn't be here today, and I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it is.
And when I was done with that piece, I moved on to alternative therapies.
Okay.
And those kinds of things were immensely helpful for me. Practicing Reiki on myself,
Wow.
doing a daily ritual of Reiki has
Okay.
made a really big difference in my life.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask what your actual rituals are these days. How do you keep yourself grounded and in a safe place?
Well, I do what I call my coffee meditation every morning.
Okay.
And I literally, this is not your traditional meditation. I don't sit, I don't with my legs crossed, I don't say om. I just sit in my comfortable chair with coffee in hand, and I just let myself breathe.
Okay.
I just breathe and allow the thoughts to come.
Yeah.
And I do that for about anywhere from 30 minutes to
Oh, wow.
over an hour. And I
Okay.
just, as I sip my coffee and let the thoughts just kind of flow by without judgment, that has been something that has been a real learning curve for me, is, to quit thinking that, oh, you're thinking this again.
Right.
Just,
Hmm.
just, okay, I'm thinking, just let it go.
Let
I'm
it, yeah,
thinking,
let it be. Let it
let
be.
it be.
Yeah.
And then sooner or later, I literally start to get messages from the universe.
Right.
And those messages are how I know to move forward in my life, and sometimes I get a message to go to the library,
Wow.
and
Okay.
I'll go to the library, and sure enough, I run across a book that is exactly what I needed in that moment
Okay.
to answer a question I had, or to help me in life or in business. And
Mm,
I didn't even know that's why I was going.
okay.
Um,
Mm,
Sometimes I'll get a message to go to the grocery store,
yeah.
and I meet somebody or I see somebody that I haven't seen in ages,
Mm,
and we reconnect. And I realize that there's something that I needed to hear that person say that day.
okay.
So it's really asking, what do I need today?
Okay.
And listening
Yeah.
and
Okay.
taking action. And
Okay.
that for me has made a great difference in my life. Typically, my days are really smooth if I get to do that.
Right.
And if for whatever reason I can't, days are not always smooth.
So
They just
yeah.
aren't.
Yeah, well, it's because it's self-care. You've given your time to just appreciate who you are, and not in, busy doing and trying to achieve and, moving on to the
Right.
next thing. It's so important that it's the gift of presence which we miss, don't we? Especially as a survivor of sexual abuse. A lot of the times we're either stuck in the past or we're stuck in the future, and it's difficult to be present because we're scared, aren't we? We get scared of our thoughts.
Right,
Mm,
right. Yeah, it gives me that time in the morning to just
yeah, just take it.
be,
Yeah, yeah, sure. I
just
love that.
be. And then at night, when I go to bed, I practice Reiki on myself
Oh,
and
lovely.
send Reiki to all the all those who have requested it or whom I know need it.
Yeah.
And that is my nightly ritual. And I typically fall asleep as I'm sending Reiki to people.
Oh, that's
So I
beautiful. Yeah.
connect with my Reiki guides and with Reiki masters, past, present, and future.
Yeah.
And they just keep things moving.
Work their magic. Wow. And that, I think that's so amazing how you go to sleep actually in that mode of giving, in that mode of contributing towards others. Such a selfless act. That is amazing.
It, it's so great, really, to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah.
Now there are times when I'm feeling more anxiety than usual,
Okay.
and I notice that it is really hard to connect. It's hard to
Mm,
connect to my Reiki guides. It's hard to connect to the universe,
yeah.
and um, and I know that those are times when I'm just really stressed,
Mm,
and if I'm not connecting, then I just ask for myself,
yeah.
because I can't give
Yeah.
if I
If you
can't receive,
yeah.
and I can't give if I'm in a weird space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again,
So
yeah.
yeah, so there are days when it's just okay, I'm hurting today.
Mm,
Just send me energy and
okay.
help me sleep well and wake up energized in the morning.
Yeah.
And
Ask and you
I
shall
wake up, I
receive.
feel great.
Okay, it is. And it's just that asking the universe, which a lot of us forget, don't we? We forget to ask for what we
Yeah,
desire and for what we need.
absolutely. Absolutely. And those are things I would not have learned if I hadn't been practicing Reiki for 30 years.
Okay.
They're all things that I've learned along the way and
Yeah.
practiced
Okay. Yeah.
along the way. It's not something that happens overnight by
Okay.
any means. But here I am today, and
Yeah.
I can do that. And I I live a blessed life that I honestly did not expect.
Yeah. And because you're very wise and knowledgeable, I want to know more about your reading and any books that you would definitely recommend to my listeners.
Yeah, there are so many books. I've got, wow. Let me think here. Kind of looking over there to see,
Your
well,
favorite.
one of the books that I use as a guide all the time is Louise Hay's You Can
Okay.
Heal Your Life.
Bye. Okay. Mm.
That she, if I have something that is going on in my body, my stomach hurts, my head hurts,
Yeah.
I fell and hurt my wrist, whatever, I look it up in there, and she has great affirmations.
Okay.
And I will use those affirmations. And I find that between that and then practicing Reiki on myself,
Yeah.
that I heal so much more quickly.
Okay. Yeah. Louise
And
Hayes. Yeah. That's a good
yeah,
book.
so
Mm.
Eckhart Tolle, The
Yeah.
Power of Now,
Yeah.
is a fabulous book. Um, let's see, Wheels of Life,
Okay.
which is a book about the chakras
Okay. Yeah.
and has been a really great book for me. And of
Brilliant.
course,
Mm.
any book on Reiki that I can find, I usually
Yeah.
pick those up as well.
Okay.
Just I have been a voracious reader since childhood. And
Okay.
I usually have a self-help book,
Yeah.
um, a story that I'm reading of some sort, and sometimes a business book
Okay.
sitting on my bedside, so that I am constantly
You're constantly
constantly learning
digesting.
something
Yeah.
else. Yes, exactly. And it just depends on what I'm drawn to. I
Okay.
may read one book for 3 days and then put it down for 2 weeks and
Right.
pick up another one.
Yeah.
So
I know. Because as well as reading, you're also very creative, aren't you? Very arty.
I am. I love art. And one of the things that has really helped me was journaling and
Yeah.
using art journaling.
Lovely.
That
Mm.
those have made tremendous difference in my life. And what I love about both of those, and frankly, when I first started journaling, it's when I was seeing my psychologist,
Okay.
and she's the one that suggested I start journaling.
Yeah.
And when I started writing down my story, I could not even say I. I had to write it in the third person as though it had happened to somebody else.
Right.
I was completely unable to write and say,
Oh,
I was molested by my uncle.
wow.
I was, and it
Wow.
worked beautifully. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a great practice for me to write in the third person and
Okay.
say she found herself in the bedroom
Right. Of
and
course, yeah.
this was happening, and it was really, really helpful. And then um, learning to put my story in art
Yeah.
was also incredibly helpful. And I've created a couple of artist books with my story in them.
Yeah.
And essentially the imagery and some writing
Yeah.
basically tells the story.
Right. I mean, do you think what was that because of any triggers that were going on? Um, or was that just the way that you like to write?
It was really just the way it was the way I had to write, because I could
Okay.
not write it in the first person. Now, if I was writing about my day and things that had happened during the
Yeah.
day,
Mm.
I was fine with writing
Okay. But
what had
yeah.
happened that day. But when it came to actually writing what happened to me years before,
Mm.
I was writing in the third person.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that my therapist probably suggested that when I
Okay.
told her I couldn't do it. I'm sure she suggested it,
Right.
although I can't I can't specifically remember, but she was so wise. She
Oh,
was
bless
so
you.
wise. I loved her. I still
Oh,
love her. I still
yeah.
work with her. I still do women's groups with her,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
she's no
wow.
longer doing traditional therapy. She's just
Okay.
doing women's groups and things like
Right.
that.
Oh, lovely. So what are your future plans for your business and projects?
Oh, that is a good question. So right about the time COVID hit,
Mhm.
I realized that what I was doing, which was helping others through art journaling and journaling, that I realized I was no longer going to be able to travel with their artwork and do anything. I was like, okay, well, clearly we are not traveling this year. That is not happening.
Oh, bless. Yeah.
So, literally in meditation, one
Okay.
morning, I just begged the question,
Yeah.
okay, so now what? What is next?
Wow. Okay.
And what I downloaded was the name Voices Heard
Okay.
and the magazine to create a I forgot the word to create a magazine with an interactive magazine. Boy,
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
so
Okay.
and I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that earlier? I've been doing graphic design as a business for
Yeah.
over 20 years.
Oh,
I was like, oh,
wow.
duh, let's bring everything together.
Yeah.
So that's what I started doing right
Yeah.
in March, right
Okay.
after COVID hit. Yeah.
Oh,
And so I
excellent.
started doing the magazine, and that truly is what my passion is. So
Right.
doing that, and then this April rather, I started doing the podcast on
Yeah.
Facebook Live.
Okay.
And so I really plan to continue that,
Mm,
to offer art workshops of
okay.
different kinds. I have one planned, well, actually, one just started this week with Denise Bossert. We are
Okay.
doing soul collage class.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And so that is really an incredible class. And Denise is actually leading it because I am not a facilitator for that specific process.
Right.
And so I plan to work with other people who do different things from what I do, but are in alignment with what I do and with what my particular clients seem to enjoy.
Okay.
So,
Perfect. Yeah.
so I'm doing that one. I'll be doing another one at the end of November.
Okay.
That will be a mask making class on forgiveness.
Wow. Okay.
So that should be an interesting class.
Yeah. So will this be your technique that you use to forgive?
It it will include some of that for sure. It will include some of that.
Yeah, that
There'll
sounds
be
really interesting.
meditation and creating um, a, a part of you that is you today and a part of the face that is you after you have forgiven,
Okay. Oh, okay.
and kind of seeing where that is. Or it could be, what did I look like 2 years ago? Who was I 2 years ago? And who am I today? That kind of thing, if you've already been doing some forgiveness work. So that should be an incredible class. And I'm also doing that with another woman who I don't even know how to describe what she does.
Okay.
She, I'm just going to wait on that because she is just an amazing person. Dina Ziskin Fortune, and I am really excited about doing the workshop with her. So we'll be using some of her stuff, some of my stuff. It'll be an interesting combination.
That's beautiful. Is this all online or will it be face to
It
face?
is. It's all online.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's going to be an all-day Saturday class.
Okay. So I guess, yeah. So I guess anybody can sign up to that, or do you have a?
Yes,
Yep.
anybody. It's primarily for survivors, but yes,
Okay.
anybody
Brilliant.
who's a survivor. Mhm.
Fantastic. And again, I can add a link in the description of the podcast.
Yes, we don't have the link yet because we don't have anything in writing yet. It's
Okay,
all
no problem.
it's all in our heads.
Yeah.
We're actually meeting this weekend to get it all together.
Oh,
So,
amazing.
but
Yeah.
excited
Oh,
about getting that done,
that
and
is,
and we'll be continuing to do other types of workshops for the next couple of years. So
beautiful.
that's the
Wow.
plan.
Absolutely. Wow. No, it's been such an honor to have you on, and just wanted to finish by asking, what your kind of, is there any piece of advice that you'd want to give to my listeners?
I think breaking the silence
Mm.
of your sexual abuse is the biggest thing that you can do. Sharing with one person when you're ready, sharing with more helps not just yourself, but it also helps others. And I found that for me, every time I share my story, it comes out a little bit differently. And sometimes different facts come out, sometimes, but I release a little bit more from my body every time I share my story. And whether you're sharing with one person or many, there's nothing to say that you have to share with many. But if and when you're ready, it is incredibly powerful.
Wow, that's amazing. So thank you
Just,
so much
yeah,
again.
just open up.
Open up.
Don't keep it inside.
So yeah, I think breaking the silence, that's come up quite a lot recently in other episodes, and I think there's a lot of power in that, in the fact that so many of us do. And a lot of this silence that we have within us, it's based on how we feel about ourselves. And, that stems from the low self-worth, low self-esteem, not feeling like we're worthy of even, of even speaking up, and that, who'd want to listen to us. And,
Exactly. Who wants
yeah,
to hear my story?
exactly. And I just want to say that, you're all worthy. You're all a special being that has been brought onto Mother Earth by God, and
Yes.
we're all special. We all have a special soul that needs to be heard. And I just want to definitely instill that, please don't suffer in silence. Speak up, be heard.
Absolutely.
Mm. And on that note, we will have to say our goodbyes. And, we do hope you enjoyed listening to Claire and her amazing story of inspiration and success. And again, thank you so much for sharing your story, Claire. It's been an absolute honor.
Oh, you are so welcome. I am so honored that you invited me, and it's just
Oh,
such a delight speaking to you all and every time.
no, I've learned so much from this talk. And yeah, I'm really inspired by, some of your techniques, which I'm definitely going to be learning more about, and,
Yes,
applying
absolutely.
those. Yeah. And yeah, so we hope you enjoyed today's talk. And, please do get in touch with myself and Claire if you do have any questions about this episode, or if you want to find out any more about Claire's amazing techniques, which I thoroughly enjoyed listening to. And until the next episode, take care, stay safe, everybody. We love you. Namaste.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.